So I'm Peter Miller, and I'm Dean at the Bard Graduate Center. And I have here with me today Ivan Gaskell, who's Professor of Cultural History and head of the Focus Project. And Ivan joined us about 7, 8 years ago now, come from Harvard, where he was for about 20 years in the Harvard Art Museums and the Fine Art Department and the History Department. And Ivan, my question for you today is, you trained at Oxford in history and at the Warburg Institute in London, and your early work was in the 17th century in the Netherlands. You still do a lot of research and publishing in that area. But tell me in a few words how it is that you came to be interested in anthropology, and you've since written about Oceania and textiles in the Congo and baskets in the American South. Explain the journey.
Well, I think I'm the kind of person who is never content in just one place. So I like to give my intellectual curiosity full rein. And I've been very fortunate to work with colleagues who have helped me to develop those curiosities. So let's start with the Warburg Institute. Although, of course, it's associated with the classical tradition in the Mediterranean world, A.B. Warburg went to the American Southwest and wrote about it, most interestingly. And that was something that piqued my curiosity. So in a way, maybe the Warburg was the place where I began to think about the world beyond the European tradition.
Thanks, that makes a lot of sense. Was there anything in the work that you did at Harvard that pushed you in this direction, or was there something maybe about leaving New England and coming to the eclectic commercial Middle Atlantic that has unleashed this interest and the torrent of scholarship?
Well, New England has always been commercially connected, and one only has to think of the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem with the extraordinary collections that from the late 18th century, the voyagers, merchants, supercargoes, captains brought back. I think that was actually a point of inspiration, the collections of the Peabody Essex Museum, but then also working on the contents of a historic house in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, that is owned by Harvard, with one of my great colleague collaborators, Laurel Thatcher Ulrich. We worked on this house, and in that house were all kinds of things from various parts of the world. There's no getting away from the things that people in New England brought back home. And that was also an opportunity to explore further.
Mm. At the BGC, you run the Focus Project. There have been 18 exhibitions so far. And at the core of the Focus Project has been a relationship with the Anthropology division of the American Museum of Natural History. How do you feel about the importance of anthropology within the Focus Project?
Oh, well, it's very important. It's one of these important strands that we use to weave together the variety of things that our colleagues, faculty colleagues and postdoctoral fellows work on and research on. And it's very important that the American Museum of Natural History's Anthropology division has been so hugely supportive of that kind of work. So I don't see it as any more important than the other topics that we've explored in focus projects, but it is vitally important. And the fact that we have a postdoctoral fellowship jointly with AMNH allows us to bring a young scholar in for usually a 2-year period to research some aspect of the collections at the museum and then present an exhibition and a publication on that research. And it's work that our colleagues at the museum tell us they can't do themselves. It's more exploratory, it's more investigative and experimental than the work that they can do. So I'm very glad that we can collaborate with them in this way.
One final question, Ivan. How do you see the work that you do and that the Focus Project has done on anthropology contributing to the broader mission of the BGC?
Well, BGC is an institution, I think, that is very unusual in its mixture of disciplines and the way in which disciplinary boundaries are kept deliberately low. So Anthropology provides one set of tools that we can use to address questions that we as scholars and our students might have. And if students learn the skills of the anthropologist, then they can apply them to the puzzles that confront them uh, as appropriate. They can combine that with historical ways of approaching puzzles, with art historical ways of addressing questions, with methods from any number of disciplines. There's no reason why one can't work in more than one discipline in order to address a set of particularly intriguing puzzles.
Ivan Gaskell, professor at the Bard Graduate Center. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
It's a great pleasure.